Hello, welcome back. Governments are making considerable amounts of data available to the public each day. Opening governmental data may seem simple and easy, but in fact it is not an easy job, and it requires several considerations. After this video, you should be able to A. Discuss considerations for public agencies when they are in the process of opening their data. B. Explain which trade-offs public agencies typically need to consider when opening their data. Let us imagine that you are a civil servant who has collected a number of datasets and you consider to open the data. Which aspects do you need to consider? The key considerations are related to embargo periods, data openness, data sensitivity and privacy, data quality and completeness, and to data documentation. Although there are more considerations, these are usually the most important ones. First, you need to think about who owns the data. The release of datasets, which are owned by various organizations, may be interesting for potential data users, since such datasets combine insights from multiple organizations. However, a potential risk of releasing such data is that it may be unclear who is responsible and accountable for the data release. Datasets can be owned by multiple organizations which have different levels of security, different policies, and which may have to comply with different laws. Second, is there an embargo period for the data? On the one hand, adopting a long embargo period reduces the risk on wrongfully publishing data, and data may become less sensitive over a longer period. Moreover, a longer embargo period allows for data reuse by the organization itself. However, a longer delay may also reduce the usefulness of datasets. Third, to which extent should openness be provided? In one respect, releasing governmental data may provide the public with more insight in what governmental processes encompass and what public agencies do. In another respect, opening governmental data to the public may result in too much openness. For instance, public agencies may accidentally release sensitive data that should not have been released. And this may result in a more negative image of the government and may decrease the public's trust in the government. In addition, openness comes at a cost, since data providers need to put effort and resources in opening the data. Each dataset may be secured in a different way, and data users may be provided with different keys to the data. Fourth, is the data sensitive, and is it legally allowed to open the dataset? It can be very difficult to determine the borderline between sensitive and non-sensitive data, especially since this needs to be done for each dataset individually. The decision on the data sensitivity requires interpretation, and mistakes might be made. Potential negative effects of not disclosing certain data is that only this data is made available that favors certain arguments or decisions of politicians. Then, the open data implies some kind of bias, and an unrealistic perspective may be created with the disclosed datasets. Fifth, another consideration when opening government data concerns the quality and the completeness of the data. Civil servants may decide to disclose data without having insight in its quality. As a consequence, they may publish data that is incomplete, inaccurate, invalid, or unreliable. Data users may comment on the data, try to increase the quality, and this may create an incentive for the data publisher to improve the data. In contrast, data users may not notice that the data is of poor quality. The low-quality data may be reused, and decisions and conclusions may be based on this data. A dataset with many missing values or variables may be misinterpreted or may not be useful at all. Datasets need to have a certain level of quality and completeness before they can be published. A sixth consideration concerns the data documentation. To be able to use open government data, users need to have some information about the meaning of the data, and the semantics need to be clear. They need data documentation to understand how the data can be used. For instance, to be able to find a book in the library, a person needs to know in which category he or she should look. However, adding considerable documentation to governmental datasets requires effort and time investments from the data provider, since this information often cannot be derived automatically from the data provider systems. When governments consider opening their data, they need to make a trade-off between the potential benefits and the potential disadvantages of this decision. A key question is to open or not to open the data. The data requires a trade-off in which either the benefits or the risks of opening may dominate. This figure shows the decision-making process in which the benefits and disadvantages of opening data are weighed. Some data has many benefits and hardly any disadvantages can be opened without any discussion. Other data should not be opened without any doubt due to security, privacy, or other reasons. There is a huge pile of data requiring a trade-off in which either the benefits or the risks may dominate. We do not know how large this part is that organizations need to decide on. Furthermore, it is likely that this changes over time. Since public values represent the needs and the preferences of the collective citizenry, public values may change over time, as the needs and the preferences of citizens may also change. It is likely that the decision regarding which data should be opened or closed will vary over time. So the most important trade-off is whether to open or not to open the dataset. This trade-off is based on the 6 considerations that I just mentioned, such as data quality and data sensitivity. For each of the considerations, the civil servant responsible for data release needs to decide which aspects are more important. For instance, is it more important that data are of high quality, or is it more important just to publish the data and to let data users point out aspects of low quality? Is it more important to ensure that absolutely no datasets are published which are sensitive and to remove all potentially sensitive variables? Or is it more important that the data is more useful but might potentially be sensitive when combined with other data? These are important trade-offs. In sum, opening government data is not easy, and there are many aspects that need to be considered when a public agency decides to open datasets. The key considerations are related to embargo periods, data openness, data sensitivity and privacy, data quality and completeness, and to data documentation. More considerations exist, and you may want to discuss them on the discussion forum. For each dataset, governmental organizations need to analyze the considerations and balance the arguments for and against its publication. For each dataset, they need to decide to open or not to open. Thank you very much for your attention.